What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video. I'm Michigan Sports Talk here. In this one, we go over some recruiting news on a top running back target for the Wolverines in the 2027 class, plus Jordan Marshall, Justice Haynes, both put on the Doak Walker Award watch list for the nation's most outstanding running back. And we also got some more fall camp intel from Jon Jansen on In the Trenches podcast as he sheds some light on how Bryce Underwood, Mikey Keene, and Jadyn Davis are doing in fall camp, why he has a lot of confidence in all three of those guys. Also talked about the Michigan wide receivers, Donaven McCulley, the comparison to Nico Collins there, and also some other receivers that he's liked. And he also spoke on Chip Lindsey, what he's seen from him, the fierce competition on the offensive line. And then also we talk about Joel Klatt, as he thinks Michigan gonna be back among the elite in college football this upcoming season. It's all gonna be in this video and more, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Alright, so let's go ahead and start this video by talking about some recruiting news here on a 2027 four-star running back, and then we will get to some more fall camp intel on the quarterbacks, Bryce Underwood, and also the receivers. But I first wanted to talk about Quintarius Gibson, a 2027 four-star running back from the state of Georgia. We have talked about him recently here. Picked up a Michigan offer in June, and he is one of the top running back targets here in the 2027 class. And according to Ethan McDowell of On3 and the Wolverine, talking about Tony Alford, he said he doesn't talk to me like a robot. He jokes around, we get on a call, he's funny, he just doesn't talk to me like a robot trying to recruit me. He talks to me like a coach. And he's already said that his interest level in the Wolverines is pretty high thanks to his connection with Alford. But now he just wants to get on campus for a visit to Michigan, wants to learn more about the environment, how they play, and he wants a school where I see they can develop me as a player but also develop me as a man. He does plan on making a decision sometime during the season, doesn't plan to, drag it out too long, so his upcoming fall trip to Michigan will definitely be a crucial one. And other teams standing out is also Clemson, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia Tech, Oklahoma, and others. But this is a guy who had on 237 carries had 1,683 yards and 17 touchdowns. So the 2027 class already starting to ramp up a little bit here for the Wolverines. We've talked about Malachi Zeigler, the four-star quarterback who could potentially be deciding soon. And then Michigan has already gotten two offensive line commits from Louis Esposito and Tristan Dare. And then while we're talking about running backs, I did want to mention both Jordan Marshall and Justice Haynes have been put on the Doak Walker Award watch list for the nation's most outstanding running back. And why wouldn't they? These are two guys who is going to be a two-headed monster here for the Wolverines in the backfield. Just absolutely cannot wait to watch them in this whole offense here this upcoming season for the Wolverines. And I tell you what, Jordan Marshall and Justice Haynes, as long as this offensive line does their part, going to make life a lot more easier for whoever is in there at quarterback for the Wolverines. And speaking on quarterbacks, we did get some fall camp intel here from former All-American NFL standout and now Michigan football's radio analyst Jon Jansen on In the Trenches podcast, and he talked about both Bryce Underwood, Mikey Keene, also Jadyn Davis. He said they're all getting great reps right now. He said at that position you're gonna need at least two, if not three, quarterbacks to run the table in the Big Ten and the college football season, the college football playoff. And I have a lot of confidence in all three of those guys that if they are in there, they're gonna get the job done. And speaking on all three, first with Jadyn Davis, he said, he's still working on his release and his throwing motion, but he's got a gun for an arm. And then Mikey Keene, very calm, cool, collected. There are just some things that Bryce can do that he can't. And then there are some things that he can do because he is calm and he sees because he's seen it, 100 times or 1,000 times because of his experience. And then Bryce Underwood, if you've ever been on the field with a young quarterback and been on the field with a guy that has done it for 4 years, there's just a different confidence that they walk around with. It's not necessarily a bad thing for Bryce, it's just different. But he did say, a couple of the early reps what we saw in the spring game has somewhat carried over to the beginning of fall camp, where some of the passes that I saw from Bryce were a little bit high, but what I liked was the adjustment coming back and the thought process of, okay, I had an open receiver, I got really excited and tried to drill this ball in there, and you know what, that's going to happen, but touch is the hardest thing for a quarterback to learn. You know, other times you got to zip a ball in there, and I'm going to be throwing that one at 80, 85 miles per hour, and then other times, you know, when you got a fade route, put a little air under it and allow your guys to run underneath it, and those are the types of things that he is doing. So, you know, he said it's never the same mistake twice. There are new mistakes to be made, and obviously young players, everybody, you know, they need to learn from those, and that's what I'm seeing from Bryce. But also, you know, Michigan defense coordinator Wink Martindale gonna throw everything at you, and he said you're not gonna see anything more from other defenses than what you see from Wink at practice, and that's one of the great things about practicing against this defense and where they are. But he did ultimately say that the timing is getting better with the Michigan receivers. He said, I like the relationship that he's building with these receivers, the chemistry that he's building, and it's really the same thing with Mikey Keene. So it's really going to be interesting here in this quarterback battle. You know, it's most likely going to come down to Bryce Underwood or Mikey Keene. But Mikey Keene, you know, he's got all that experience. You know, he's been in so many different situations already at the college level that Bryce Underwood still has to experience. And then you got Bryce Underwood, who just has all the physical traits and everything that you want in a quarterback. He's just got to get his experience up. But obviously when Bryce Underwood came here, he wanted competition. He's getting it right now with Mikey Keene in there. You also got Jadyn Davis, and they obviously added Jake Garcia to the room as well. But Jon Jansen also did speak on the wide receivers, though. First talked about Donaven McCulley. He said the comparison that was made between him and Nico Collins is certainly there. Now what I need to see from him is a little bit more aggression at the top of some of those passes where we're talking about those 50-50 balls. You know, he talked about a play with Nico Collins where there was a play over the middle. He goes up and attacks the ball. Those are the types of things that those guys are working on, and he has that in his skill set and have seen it, but need to see it every single time. And then also he talked about Frederick Moore. He said that, you know, the speed is there, and that's the guy that I think is going to be the deep threat. And then also Samaj Morgan, you know, he said that I talked about him being more of a universal tool of guys going back and forth, some reverses and some wide receiver screens. He'll excel at those, but I really like the adjustments he's made to some of his routes. They're much crisper, much cleaner, and the route combinations, I could talk all day about what I'm seeing from this offense. And he did say as far as the defense, Zeke Berry, as advertised, he's having a great camp. Defensive line, those guys are going to be spring chickens, fresh as daisies, because there are so many guys that are going to be productive up front. They're rotating those guys through, getting lots of reps for all of those defensive linemen, the linebackers. So, you know, this defense certainly going to be one of the best in college football. You know, Joel Klatt has even said that, you know, he thinks Michigan will be a top 5 defense this upcoming season. And a lot of it has to do with that defensive line. We've talked about the 10-man rotation. Just that depth on the defensive line is so crucial, you know, for any championship contender. When you have that kind of depth on defense and on the defensive line with those big bodies rotating in, staying healthy, staying fresh. I mean, you know, as an offensive coordinator, as a quarterback, you see that, and these fresh bodies coming in, it's like, oh boy, here we go again. You know, you're not going to be getting a break with this Michigan defense. But Jon Jansen also did speak on Chip Lindsey. He said, I like what I'm seeing from him in regards to how they're constructing this offense. You know, it's still going to be a run-first offense. I think everybody has that question. But, you know, there's still going to be a lot of run game in this. And he talked about the offensive line battles. He said that, you know, they're still sorting things out up front, a lot of combinations up front. And he said, you know, I like what I'm seeing from all these guys, though, that are out there. The competition is fierce. And Sherrod Moore has already said that he is loving the competition they have. And they got a lot of guys competing, you know, for the starting spots, not only for the starting spots, but also the offensive line rotation as well. And then lastly, also wanted to talk about what Joel Klatt did say on Michigan as he unveiled his preseason top 25 for the 2025 college football season, which we did mention yesterday as Michigan checked in at number 10 on his list. And he said 2 years removed from winning a national championship, here are the Michigan Wolverines at number 10. He said that I can't help myself. I just love the way that they finished the season. This is a defense that got it going late in the year, even with their star players not playing. And then, he said they cannot be worse on offense than they were a year ago. And I think they're going to be back among the elite in college football. The team figured things out at the end of the year. Wink Martindale, their defensive coordinator, figured it out. What worked with his players as the season went along, and they bring in a new offensive coordinator, Chip Lindsey, and I'm interested to see how that works out. And also the quarterback battle, will we see Bryce Underwood? Is it going to be Mikey Keene? And he said, Michigan should be better, and also pointed out their, favorable schedule. They said their schedule is not that bad, and he said that, they're going to travel out to Norman, to Oklahoma, and if they win that game, watch out. This is a CFP team, which I completely agree with that. If Michigan wins that Oklahoma game, you might as well circle them in the playoffs, because when you look at the schedule, it is very favorable for the Wolverines. They obviously still got to take care of business, and they can still make the playoffs even, with the Oklahoma loss if they lose to Oklahoma. But if they win that game, their CFP chances go up mightily. So let me know what you guys think. Joel Klatt, though, thinks that Michigan gonna be back among the elite in college football here this upcoming season. But with that, that's gonna wrap up this video. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, make sure to go ahead, drop a like, comment down below, and subscribe for more if you are new around here. I greatly appreciate it, and we will see you guys in the next video. Go Blue.